Hey everyone, welcome back to the For the Wise podcast. I am so glad you're here. Go ahead, grab a warm drink, maybe dim the lights a bit, and let's get into that late night headspace. Before we jump in, if you enjoy our explainers, please take a quick second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It genuinely helps us out. I see my co-host Hakeem the Owl is looking wide-eyed and ready over in his corner tonight, which is perfect, buddy, because tonight's explainer is a real deep dive. We are looking at the hidden enemy, subversion in our closest relationships.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. What does an enemy actually look like? I mean, be totally honest with yourself here. When you hear the word enemy, your mind probably jumps straight to a really generic caricature, right? We all do it. We picture some hostile villain from a movie, or maybe that loud, obnoxious person at work who just openly wants to see you fail. We imagine someone standing across a battlefield, glaring right at us.
Yeah, we usually picture the cinematic enemy, open hatred, visible malice, very clear battle lines. But here's the wild secret about this kind of overt hostility. It's actually incredibly easy to guard against. Seriously, it is. When someone is screaming in your face or actively plotting your downfall in broad daylight, your human psyche naturally kicks into high gear. Your mental and emotional shields pop right up. You erect these massive defenses because the battle lines are unmistakably clear. You know exactly where the threat is coming from, so you know how to block it.
Okay, let's move on to Section 1, the hidden reality, subversion in proximity. And man, this is where it gets incredibly real for all of us. We are stepping off the battlefield and right into the living room. See, the truth is, our most profound vulnerabilities do not lie out there in the trenches. They lie within our own perimeter. They exist in those super comfortable, safe spaces where our defenses are intentionally and happily lowered. There is this deeply profound Quranic framework that addresses exactly this, specifically from Surah At-Taghabun, chapter 64, verse 14. This text cuts straight through all the noise of loud, dramatic conflicts. It talks about how some of our spouses or closest family members can actually act as enemies. But listen to this. It introduces this chillingly sophisticated taxonomy of opposition. It tells us that enmity can beautifully masquerade as agreeableness. We're not talking about some shocking overnight betrayal or an explosive argument where someone storms out of the house. No, it's about a structural vulnerability. It's about someone unintentionally leveraging their emotional proximity to you, subverting your values in a way that is quiet, gentle, and utterly insidious.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need a solid mental image. So let's hit Section 2, the Askew railway track. Think about a massive, heavily loaded train. When a train like that derails, it almost never happens because the tracks suddenly take a sharp 90-degree turn to the left. No way. A train derails because somewhere, miles back along the line, a single switch is misaligned by just a tiny fraction of an inch.
A single degree of deviation changes the destination entirely. Think about it like driving with your GPS late at night. If you miss a turn by just a single degree, you don't immediately crash your car into a ditch. Everything feels totally fine. The road looks the exact same, the radio is still playing, but over a long distance, that microscopic deviation quietly carries you along until 4 hours later, you wake up and realize you've ended up in an entirely wrong city. That is exactly how subversion works in our closest relationships.
I know. I can see Hakeem's button eyes looking a little stressed out over there in his corner. It is a really heavy thought, right, buddy? But don't worry, we're going to break this down so we can spot it. Let's look at Section 3, the masks of subversion. We need to see what this subtle misalignment actually looks like in our regular everyday lives, mostly because it usually hides behind some incredibly convincing masks.
So here are the three main masks it wears. First up is pragmatism and security. This is when a loved one encourages you to compromise on your core values, but they frame it as protecting the family or securing our financial future or just, being realistic. The second mask is emotional weight. This is the heavy use of love, guilt, or the fear of starting a fight used to gradually erode your moral autonomy. And third, we have the comfort of inertia. This one is that gentle, persistent nudging away from a high-energy state of living by your principles, pulling you down toward a low-energy state of comfortable, easy mediocrity.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why this stuff is so hard to catch. The danger isn't explosive, it is incremental. The people close to you, your spouse, your parents, your siblings, they don't necessarily hate your principles, not at all. They just find your high-energy commitment to those values highly inconvenient to their own worldly comfort and immediate desires. You wanting to wake up early, or stand firm on a complex moral issue, or sacrifice for a greater good, well, it disrupts their cozy Tuesday night. So they pull you down, just a millimeter at a time.
Now, what's really fascinating is the contrast in the psychology behind all of this. Like, why does this happen? Is everyone around us just secretly evil? Let's check out Section 4, Aggressive versus Passive Subversion.
Over on the left side, we have aggressive masking. Standard psychology talks about this a whole lot. This is that calculated transactional persona used by dark personalities, your narcissists, your sociopaths, to intentionally infiltrate and exploit you. They have a whole master plan. But on the right side, we have passive subversion, which is what we have been talking about tonight. And honestly, it's arguably way more insidious. See, there is no master plan here. None. It is just the raw, unpolished gravity of a loved one's anxieties, desires, and worldly attachments pulling at your orbit. They absolutely are not trying to destroy you. They are just heavily anchored to the world, and they end up acting like a slow-draining battery on your spiritual energy. And because you love them, your natural inclination is to accommodate them. But every small accommodation is a millimeter shift in the track. You skip that important commitment just once to keep the peace. You stay quiet on a moral issue because you really don't want to cause friction at the dinner table. It is all done out of love. But over time, slowly, silently, your moral autonomy completely erodes away.
Okay, let's all take a deep breath. I know this sounds a bit intense, but this explainer is absolutely not an injunction to paranoia. We are not declaring domestic warfare on our families here. Instead, we need Section 5, the cure, meta-awareness. I want you to think of this solution like a glowing crimson embroidery thread running right through the center of your life. It is a structural anchor that keeps everything from unraveling.
Remember that Quranic verse we looked at earlier? Well, the very next part of it immediately counsels toward pardon, forbearance, and forgiveness. That is just so beautiful and honestly so crucial to remember. It means we don't fight back. We don't get resentful or angry. We just hold our ground. We forgive them because they very often don't know what they are doing. But we absolutely refuse to let the train switch be flipped. So the absolutely crucial point here is establishing this meta-awareness. It demands that you maintain an independent spiritual and moral anchor. You have to recognize that the sweetest, most agreeable voices in your life, the very people who love you the most, can sometimes be the exact instruments that quietly compromise your sovereignty. Keep that glowing internal thread totally taut. Hold on to your values, even when the people you love the most ask you with a warm smile and a big hug to lower the bar. As we wrap up this late-night session, I want to leave you pondering a pretty big question. Where is your track slowly drifting? Look closely at your inner circles. Look at the little accommodations you've been making lately. Are you actually heading toward the city you want to end up in? Take some time to really think about that tonight. From me and my buddy Hakeem the Owl over here, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If this explainer sparks something in you, please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, and share the For the Wise podcast with a friend so we can keep bringing you more of these deep dives. Have a great night, stay anchored, and stay wise.